Hey guys, CoralCave here, and today I'm bringing you a guide for Mythic Eye of Azshara. First, I just want to say that these are the pulls that work best for my group, but depending on your comp, there is a degree of flexibility here. For example, depending on your gear level and comp, you may want to pull bigger or smaller packs than my group pulled. With that said, let's get straight into it. At the start of the instance, you're going to go straight down the left side and pull the first pack of mobs all the way down to the little tent at the end of the hill. You're going to be fighting 2 Stormweavers in this pack, which need to be interrupted so that they'll run into the group for AoEs. Other than that, this pack is pretty simple. Just keep interrupts up on the Stormweavers to minimize raid damage, and you should be fine. For the next pull, we grab the Patrolling Crusher and pull him into the Stormweaver and Oracle right before the boss's room. For this pack, it's very important to keep interrupts up on the Oracle's Rejuvenating Waters cast. If she gets the cast off, it's a massive AoE heal that you definitely don't want to deal with. It's a good idea to assign 2 DPS to this interrupt just in case something goes wrong. Anyone not assigned to Oracle interrupts should be interrupting the Stormweaver to minimize group damage. The next pack is inside the boss's room. It's just an Oracle and 2 warriors. Just keep interrupts up on the Oracle and kill her first and you'll be fine. When you pull the first boss, he's going to summon 2 adds to come and help him. The adds are a Hatecoil Crest Rider and a Hatecoil Shellbreaker. The Shellbreaker is a melee add that just does a group-wide AoE that can largely be ignored. The Crest Rider is a ranged add with an ability called Restoration that needs to be interrupted. If this ability is allowed to go off, it'll heal the boss for a large percentage of his health. To deal with the adds, it's best to cleave down the Shellbreaker and leave the Crest Rider alive as long as you can keep interrupts up on it. The reason for keeping one add alive is the boss's ability called Impaling Spear. When a player is targeted with the Impaling Spear, they need to make sure that they have an add between them and the boss to intercept the spear. At lower level mythics, sometimes it's hard to not accidentally cleave down the adds like you see in our video, so if that happens, you just need to have one of your DPS take the spear and use a damage reduction cooldown. It's also worth noting that the boss enrages at 30%, so you might want to have some cooldowns ready on a higher level mythic. After the boss is down, get on your mounts and take the path to the right when you leave the room. To unlock the next boss, Lady Hatecoil, you need to kill 2 Hatecoil Arcanists to lower her arcane shielding. These Arcanists come with a variety of adds, so I'll show you the easiest ones that we always kill. In this section, it's easy to skip a lot of trash, but it's also very hard to explain, so just pay attention to the pathing that we take through the trees. Alternatively, if you want to be safer and not have to worry about remembering the path, you could use an invisibility potion here to skip all of the trash up to the first Arcanist that we kill. When you get to the first Hatecoil Arcanist, there are 2 abilities that you need to be interrupting, Aqua Spout and Polymorph Fish. She has a 3rd interruptible ability called Arcane Rebound, which I would suggest not interrupting as the damage is very moderate as long as players stay spread. Lastly, the Polymorph Fish ability can and should be dispelled if a DPS fails to get the interrupt. Once you finish the first Arcanist, leave the woods and go to the left on the beach, where you'll find your second Arcanist. Be careful when you pull this one because she spawned very close to a snail, which you definitely don't want to fight. Once you finish this ad, believe it or not, we're going to skip Lady Hatecoil for now. The storm that blows you all over the place in this instance begins when you kill Lady Hatecoil. Because of this, we found that it's much easier to fight Serpentrix without the storm and then come back to Lady Hatecoil and kill her third. We experimented some with killing Hatecoil last, but we found that the storm will spawn regardless when you go up Deepbeard's hill. When it comes to Serpentrix trash, we try to kill everything in his zone, including the seagulls. To assist with chain pulling, in this area we generally have 1 ranged DPS and our healer spread out and continuously pull mobs to our tank. You should also have ranged DPS tilting their cameras up and looking for seagulls that they can pull from the sky. If you don't pull the seagulls, they could accidentally pull from AoE during the boss, and they do a disorient which could cause a wipe. There are a few packs of crabs in the woods across from Serpentrix, which I would recommend pulling because they're very easy percentage. The trash in this zone is not very deadly, but I'll go over some of their abilities just in case. The large red crabs do a conal sand spray that you need to avoid, and debuff a player reducing their hit chance by 33%, which a healer just needs to dispel. The large blue crabs do a cleave, and also cast an ability called Armor Shell that needs to be interrupted. Lastly are the large blue hydras, which send out storm bolts to targeted areas that you need to avoid and do a tail swipe, so don't be behind them. When you get to Serpentrix, the fight is pretty straightforward. If you have the Toxic Wound, make sure you're placing the puddles in an appropriate area. Serpentrix will submerge at 66 and 33%. When he re-emerges, he'll come up with 2 heads, and DPS just need to burn those down first before getting back on the boss. There's a lot of unavoidable damage that comes out on this boss, so it's not a bad idea if you want to use some healing output cooldowns. As soon as you finish Serpentrix, head back to Hatecoil and start the fight. There isn't a lot to say about Lady Hatecoil. It's basically a dance between getting on the land and getting on the water when DBM tells you to. The only real noteworthy ability that Hatecoil has is Curse of the Witch. If you have this ability, make sure you face it away from the group when it's about to expire to keep them from getting knocked back. If there are any lesser oozes up when the curse is about to expire, you can face them and it will kill them. After Lady Hatecoil is dead, go back across Serpentrix's zone and hug the right wall as you enter the cave to avoid the sea giant. Once you get inside the cave, there's a patrol of murlocs as well as some miners which you can pull together. If the patrol is not in a convenient spot, you don't have to pull them with the miners, it's just for convenience. Also worth noting is that the miners that I'm talking about are not the ones you see on the screen right now, they're going to be in the hallway to the right that we're about to go down. One last note for this cave is that there are snails, so you should be very careful with AoEs because again, you do not want to fight these. As you exit the cave, hug to the right to avoid the sea giant, but be aware that there are some murlocs on the right as well. Again, it's a little hard to explain, so just watch the video, but the idea is that you're going to be staying just outside the aggro radius of either mob. As you approach the next hill, make sure you're hanging to the left to avoid the sea giant and pack of murlocs. Once you're past them, go straight up the hill and pull the two sea giants together just before the boss. This trash pull is very difficult, mainly because the two sea giants are going to stun your party and then use an earthquake ability. Everybody in the party should be ready to use damage reduction cooldowns, and the healer should be ready for massive AoE heals. Also worth noting is that this is your last chance for trash completion percentage. If you missed some pulls earlier, especially the crabs near Serpentrix, then you may need to go down the hill and pull 1 or 2 packs of murlocs. This is because the 4 Nagas right before the last boss do not give any percentage towards completion. When fighting Deepbeard, he does several ground effects that just need to be avoided. He also does an ability called Gaseous Bubbles on 2 players. These 2 players need to take a total of 250,000 damage before the bubble expires to avoid AoEing the raid. The easiest way to take this amount of damage is to either stand in the small cracks on the ground and wait for an aftershock, or stand in a lightning strike. It's important to not use the boss's ground slam to break the bubbles, as it deals far too much damage. Finally, the boss has an enrage at 30%, so tanks need to have cooldowns available, and healers need to be ready to heal the tank up. Also, you can see that we bloodlusted on this boss, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would definitely save it for the last boss. For the 4 Naga leading up to the last boss, I would recommend pulling them 1 at a time, but you could potentially pull 2 at a time. The reason I would only recommend 1 at a time is because each mob has an ability that needs to be interrupted, as well as the Arcane Bomb, which could quickly overwhelm the healer for dispels. As for which abilities to interrupt, I would let the Lightning Blast and the Arcane Bomb through and interrupt everything else. Healers make sure that you're dispelling the Arcane Bomb, and everybody else make sure that you're moving out of the circle it leaves. When you get to the last boss, pretty much all of the damage in the fight is avoidable. If you're in a pinch and you have to take damage, try to favor the tidal waves as they deal the least amount of damage. The boss continues to cast the arcane bombs, just like the trash mobs before him. Like always, dispel players with the debuff, and players move out of the circle. And that's pretty much the whole instance. If you guys found this video useful, go ahead and hit the like button, and if you want to subscribe, I am going to be finishing out this series, covering all of the Mythic Plus dungeons for this expansion. Lastly, I know everybody does these dungeons differently, so if you guys have any tips or anything that you guys do differently that might be a little more efficient than how I do it, let me know in the comments. I'm always open and receptive to these ideas. I'm always looking to get faster at these as well, so hopefully we can all work together and make sure that these are getting a lot quicker. As always, thanks for watching, guys.